Hello and welcome to the Entertainment Gig Podcast, episode 23. My name is Cleon. On this week's episode, we discuss the Emmy Award winners. We pay tribute to Alexis Arquette and a couple of other notable passings. And the topic this week is the summer movie box office season. Okay, on to the news for the week. This past Sunday, the Emmy Awards were handed out for television performances, and the big winner of the night was Game of Thrones, which actually broke the record for most Emmys in a series for a show, for 1 year at least. Although it did not win a whole lot in terms of the major acting awards, but it cleaned house in virtually every other category, I should say. They were voted the best drama series. Best comedy series went to Veep on HBO as well. As far as best acting awards went, the best actor for a drama series went to Rami Malek for Mr. Robot. Best actress for a drama went to Tatiana Maslany for Orphan Black. Also, best actor in a comedy series went to Jeffrey Tambor for Transparent. Best actress for comedy went again to Julia Louis-Dreyfus for Veep. As far as supporting actors went, for drama, Ben Mendelsohn won for Best Supporting Actor for Bloodline. Best Supporting Actress, in a bit of an upset, Dame Maggie Smith won for the final season of Downton Abbey over a bunch of Game of Thrones people. They may have actually split the vote on that one, which is probably why none of them actually took the award this year at least. Best Supporting Actor in a Comedy, in a major shocker, was Louis Anderson for Baskets, which, to be honest, I had never even heard of that show. Best Supporting Actress in a Comedy Series, in another major upset, Kate McMinnon from Saturday Night Live. She usually plays Ellen DeGeneres and Hillary Clinton on the show now. In terms of Best Limited Series, the big winner of the night was The People vs. O.J. Simpson, which cleaned house in virtually every one of their categories that they were up for. The best TV movie for the year was Sherlock, The Abominable Bride, which was on PBS. Best variety sketch series was the final season of Key and Peele on Comedy Central. Best variety talk show series went to Last Week Tonight with John Oliver on HBO, and Best Reality Competition Series was NBC's The Voice. Also, in terms of television news, for renewals and cancellations, American Ninja Warriors was renewed for another season on NBC. This show had its beginnings on Japanese television when it was just called Ninja Warrior, which was a Japanese physical fitness competition which got transported onto the G4 network, which I believe is no longer around. I believe they are now actually the Esquire network, at least in America. I think in Canada the G4 network still exists, but they took the Ninja Warrior franchise, turned it into an American version of it, and it is now on NBC, and that just got renewed. As far as cancellations go, Roadies on Showtime was canceled after only one season, so rest in peace to that show. In terms of actual human being rest in pieces, this past week we lost transgender actress Alexis Arquette at age 47 of AIDS-related complications. She was the sister of Patricia and David Arquette and also Rosanna Arquette. She acted mainly in low-budget movies. She was in Last Exit to Brooklyn and Threesome. She was probably most famously known for being the Boy George impersonator in the movie The Wedding Singers. Also, this past week, we lost Charmaine Carr, who played the eldest Von Trapp daughter in The Sound of Music, the Julie Andrews classic, not to be confused with whatever musical is going to end up on Fox and NBC. We lost her to complications from dementia at age 73. And in Broadway news, we lost Edward Albee, who is a 3-time Pulitzer Prize-winning playwright. He wrote most famously Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Okay, the topic for the week is the movie summer box office season. Normally, the box office season used to be, back in the day, the box office season for summertime was between Memorial Day and Labor Day due to big movie box office blockbusters, especially in the superhero categories. They have since pushed that from Memorial Day forward to, or backwards, depending on how you're looking at it, to somewhere around late April, very early May, and even the Labor Day ending has been kind of pushed so that it's actually closer to this past weekend or even the weekend before. So in terms of the box office this year, there were some big winners. The number one movie for the summer was actually Finding Dory, which raked in $484 million. It was followed by Captain America Civil War, which was actually one of those late April movies. The Secret Life of Pets, Suicide Squad, despite the reviews, actually made a lot of money. The last Jason Bourne movie, Jason Bourne. Star Trek Beyond, which made money despite, or at least made $157 million, gross I should say, despite the somewhat lackluster reviews as well. X-Men Apocalypse, the movie with The Rock and Kevin Hart called Central Intelligence, and despite all the hatred, Ghostbusters, and rounding out the top 10 was Legends of Tarzan. Now, this list was actually in terms of total gross money spent. That does not take into consideration the budget of the movie, and it does not take into consideration the marketing money that needed to be put into the movie. And when you look at things that way, a lot of those movies did not do as well as you would think. Take, for instance, let's see here. Oh, here's a good one. Star Trek Beyond, which made $157 million gross. However, it was budgeted at $185 million. When you consider that these days your marketing budget is anywhere between half of your total movie budget to, in some cases, actually equaling your total movie budget, that movie, in terms of domestic box office, didn't do well. However, it had a pretty decent overseas box office, which is where a lot of movies now make their money. So it turned out to be a relatively decent profit, considering how poorly it did in America compared to its budget. A few movies actually did really well in terms of what they were budgeted at, and then in terms of how much money they made, at least domestically. Central Intelligence had only a $50 million budget. I say only because usually Kevin Hart and Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson make a lot of money in terms of their how much they make per movie. However, on that particular one, I suspect that a lot of it ended up in what is called the back end, which is once a movie hits a certain plateau, you then get a percentage of the actual gross in some cases, or a percentage of the profits in other cases. So even though that movie was budgeted at $50 million, domestically it made $130 million, which is a nice hefty profit, even when you consider in the marketing that went into that movie. Not making the top 10 in terms of total gross, but in terms of how much money it made, the movie Bad Moms, which was only made for $20 million. However, in terms of its domestic box office, so far, it has made $110 million. That's $110 million off of a $20 million movie. To give you more perspective into some of these movies, you can look at a movie like Don't Breathe, which was only made for approximately $10 million, had a decent-sized budget in terms of its marketing. It has made so far $75 million, and we haven't even hit the Halloween season yet. And now you know why they make so many low-budget horror movies, because you can make them cheap and you can make usually a pretty decent amount of money. Also, in terms of low-budget movies that are actually doing very well, the movie When the Bow Breaks, which has only been out for a couple of weeks, was budgeted also at about $10 million. So far, it has made $22 million, which is a good chunk of change, and basically blows away whatever myths that Hollywood has about how a mainly black casted movie will not make money at the box office, or at least some sort of a profit for you. This definitely puts that to rest, along with a lot of other movies. The one thing that struck me, getting back to the Emmy winners last night, as I record this on a Monday, and the show was on Sunday, was just how diverse the winners and the nominees were in television, but not so much in terms of when you look at movies. We discussed last week the diversity report and how poor that is in terms of Hollywood movies. The myth that movies with minority casts can't make money at the box office is merely a myth. These movies do sell worldwide, especially in this day and age, and Hollywood needs to pay more attention to that, as opposed to these big budget blowouts, which, come to find out, with a lot of movies this past summer, didn't make money. For instance, Ben-Hur, which is the latest remake of the classic starring Charlton Heston, which is yet another movie that no one asked for, there was no buzz for it, and it bombed miserably. It lost a total of $120 million for its studio. It actually was budgeted at $100 million. Then you have to take into consideration all the marketing that goes along with that movie, and it made $26 million. That's it. Even Steven Spielberg is not immune to this. The movie The BFG was budgeted at $140 million, only made $54 million. You would think that Hollywood would learn a couple lessons from this past summer, but I don't foresee that as happening, mainly because there are so many movies that are already in the pipeline, so by the time that they have learned their lesson, it's a little too late. The next year or two are basically already booked. So you won't see a whole lot of changes in the next few years. But one thing that is glaring about this past summer box office is that a lot of movies that people just did not ask for, or movies that just flat out were god awful, like the last Alice in Wonderland movie, bombed miserably. Whereas movies that were actually good, like Finding Dory and Captain America Civil War, and even The Secret Life of Pets, which was actually a very good movie considering that it was just your throwaway, quote-unquote, anime movie, did resoundingly well this past summer. If you make a good movie, people will go and see it. If you make a bad movie, people will at the very least wait for cable. Hopefully, Hollywood will learn something from this, although knowing Hollywood, I tend to doubt it. Okay, it's new release time. The new movies this coming weekend are going to be The Magnificent Seven, which is the remake of the classic Western. This time it stars Denzel Washington and Chris Pratt. Also, the animated movies about storks called Storks, original title. However, with those big budgets coming out this weekend, you might want to search out a couple that are in limited release. The first one is called The Dressmaker. It stars Judy Davis and Kate Winslet and a bunch of other really good actors. And also The Queen of Katwe, which is about African chess champions. Both of those should be really good, and both of those may be worth searching out at your local Cineplex. As far as DVDs go, The Free State of Jones, which starred Matthew McConaughey, a Civil War era movie. Also Neighbors 2 with Zac Efron and Seth Rogen. And Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2, Out of the Shadows, just in case you didn't catch it in the movie theaters earlier this year. However, with all of those, you may also want to search out a documentary about Israel called Colliding Dreams, which, judging by the trailer, looks extraordinarily interesting. Also, this coming week, it's the premiere of the NBC television shows. So keep a lookout for shows like The Blacklist, SVU, etc., etc., etc. And that is it as far as this week's episode goes. And here comes my other voice to tell you all that other sort of good legalese. Enjoy your week. That is it for this week's episode. Our website is theentertainmentgig.com. Our Facebook page is at The Entertainment Gig. We are on iTunes and Google Play at The Entertainment Gig, but we are also on SoundCloud at CJBT-Productions. And on YouTube at CJBT Productions, which has a slideshow of my photography, which you can find on Facebook at CJBT Photography, and the portfolio at cjbtproductions.zenfolio, that's ZENFOLIO.com. And that is it. We will talk with you next week. Take care.